Rise up, people of Jamaica, people of Jamaica, time for we rise up. You know see Daryl Falze take with a fool. Uno no see Daryl Falze take with a fool. Daryl Falze and him government take Jamaican people for one piece of konomono. Imagine so much hungry belly, now have nowhere to live people down a western Jamaica. And God he knows. Daryl Falze I come tell we Jamaicans say, Fiend government, yes, the government where him say him defend with all him life, take $150 million. I don't remember if it's US or Jamaican, but a 150 million. Anything, whether it be US or Jamaican, them the money come for take the people them half of the road will come down for Melissa. Picnic and go school. And Daryl Falze take 150 million a bail out Jamaica public service instead of taking the money and take care of the Jamaican people. We out a door and I walk up and down in a western Jamaica. I beg food and I look water. I drink dirty water out of some dirty place. Daryl Falze and him government take 150 million a bail out JPS. Imagine that. When him bail out JPS, you know see say Daryl Falze a bail out the business people them, because all them interested in is to put back the business people them pan them foot and a business with the common poor and destitute. What a wicked set of people. Daryl Falze, you must go hell. Daryl Falze, you must go hell. Daryl Falze, you must go hell. Daryl Falze, you must go hell.
For the people of Jamaica to get back light. And so, Minister Falze, you are next up, and please welcome our Minister of Energy, Telecoms and Transportation.
Thank you very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure by now you would have either heard or seen the response to my statement in Parliament yesterday as it relates to the JPS restoration efforts as a result of Melissa. There was some question and answers after, which has caused some level of confusion, and I'm here this morning to basically just give a quick outline of exactly what has transpired to where we are today. So, Jamaicans will recall that a license was issued, electricity license, in 2001. That license was renewed in 2016 and expires in 2027. The license requires that the government of Jamaica indicate by July 2025 the status of their decision as it relates to the license that expired in 2027. We responded in June 2025 as the government of Jamaica to indicate that we would not be renewing the license on the current terms, and that any license that was going to be issued would be on newly negotiated terms. Firstly, because we believe that the license was flawed in the first place, and secondly, a license that is 25 years old does not reflect the changes and the landscape in the energy sector. Important to note, if we did not respond by July 5th, 2025, the JPS would automatically get an extension of 10 years on the existing license. That would take you to 2037. So for all those who are saying that we have caused a problem because we gave them notice and they can't raise money with their license for 2 years, just imagine continuing for another 12 years under the same terms and conditions with the electricity price as where it is as the highest in this region. So I wanted to make that first statement to put everything in context. Secondly, we don't want to mix politics with Melissa. That's a position that I have taken and the government has taken. But I must state, and you can take from my statement now what I'm saying. This is the first time that the Andrew Holness-led Jamaica Labour Party government has gotten an opportunity to renegotiate a license from scratch. First time. And we gave a commitment to the Jamaican people then that we were going to protect the Jamaican people by making sure that a license or any license that was issued would have the Jamaican people's interest first and foremost. That would be the country and the consumers. So I made a commitment as minister with the backing of my government that the license would not be renewed on the current terms, and that a negotiating team would be put in place to start negotiations with whoever was interested in the possibility of running the utility company. JPS expressed an interest, and therefore that's all well and good. But it's clear that we have options. So the government of Jamaica, for the first time, had leverage because we have a license to issue on terms that we want to make sure are favorable. Here comes Melissa. Unfortunately, Melissa came and did catastrophic damage, not only to Jamaica landscape, but also the transmission and distribution lines of the Jamaica Public Service. Originally, first estimate was between 480 and 600 million US. Thankfully, that has been coming down nicely as assessments continue, and they are now at about 350 million US dollars. So that's great news. However, Melissa posed a problem because with a license with 2 years to go, the JPS would not be able to find or raise the capital on the capital market. And first thing that they said was that they would need a 15-year extension of the current license in order to be able to raise capital. They met with the multilaterals, who were very, very anxious to help on an emergency basis, but they too said that they needed between 8 and 10 years extension in order to protect their loan. So the minister here and the government and the cabinet were in a pickle for two reasons. One, an extension on the existing license, despite the fact that we had Melissa, would be a breach of faith in relation to the commitments that were given. Secondly, we would not have time to negotiate any amendments, even on an interim basis, to speed up the restoration and be able to speed up the restoration at the same time. Huge problem, because the fact of the matter, as was said in Parliament by all my colleagues yesterday, the people want light. The projection by the JPS currently, with their existing apparatus of 170 imported linesmen and equipment, takes us to April to May 2026. Can you imagine telling the people in the 5 parishes that they have to wait until mid-year next year to get light? Absolutely unacceptable. It's just not possible. It's as simple as that. So we had to find a solution. And the first solution of mixing an extension for funding was not palatable, neither for me as minister or for my government. So on Monday morning, after several different iterations and negotiations and proposals, we had a meeting with the Minister of Finance, the Financial Secretary, myself and the Permanent Secretary, President and CEO of JPS and the Chairman. And I made it clear on the outset that we are not discussing an extension and funding. We are separating both. That was agreed. We were able to come out of that meeting and go to Cabinet to get an approval to loan the JPS $150 million immediately, on the basis that that money would be used singularly for an advanced restoration, taking us from April or May next year to January to February 2026, which means that we'll be saving 3 to 4 months on restoration. How was the 150 picked out of a hat? They said they needed 300 linesmen to add to the 170 linesmen, and that would cost $75 million US a month for 150 for 2 months. They said, let's stop there. Let's deal with that and get the restoration program going, and then we continue discussions and negotiations in relation to what happens after that. So that is what Cabinet approved, a 5-year loan, which means that they have the option to pay it off in 2 years, which is when their license expires. If they are successful in the negotiation on our terms, they'll be able to raise the capital immediately to pay the government back their money. If they are not, and there's a new player that is coming to the table, the contract and the conditions of the license requires that the government buys the assets of JPS, which means that our $150 million will be set off with whatever that valuation is. And a valuation will be done based on the current status of JPS now, and also one if it comes the time where the assets have to be valued because the negotiations have broken down and JPS will not continue in 2027. So I want to make it very clear that the government has acted responsible and that the government and the taxpayers of Jamaica are secured. Worst case scenario is that we convert the $150 million into preferential shares in JPS if they are unable for whatever reason to repay. So it's covered on all angles. So I wanted to clear that from the mischief and the nuisance and the noise that's coming from sub-circles. I want to quote, and I'm asking you, especially Desmond, to just work with me, because it's very important to clear the noise and give the facts. I was posed a question yesterday by the leader of the opposition. And he asked as follows: so I'd like your assurance, Minister, that the $200 million will be coughed up by the JPS. That's the difference between the 350 and $150 million that JPS is putting up. The $200 million that will be needed. Or JPS is going to draw down on whatever funding it can to raise from its creditors. I don't know how they plan to fund it, but we need to know it's funded before we put up our $150 million. What the leader of the opposition is saying is that we must not start the restoration immediately. We must allow the people to continue to suffer while we negotiate and try and find a way to find $200 additional million, which would set us back for restoration not by June, April or May, but probably 2 to 3 more months after that, by the time that negotiation is completed. So, as I said, that's a quote from the leader of opposition. And my response is, as Minister of Energy, as a Jamaican, as someone who has been to the hardest hit areas, seeing the people suffering without electricity, I cannot agree with withholding funds that will accelerate the restoration of the recovery process until JPS sources the other $200 million. It would be unfair and unjust to the people of St. James, Westmoreland, Hanover, Trelawney, St. Ann, and other less affected areas. The $150 million will be the difference between people getting back light as early as Christmas 2025 and latest end of January, February 26, as against June 2026. I also want to say that I made a miscalculation, and overnight I was able to get it corrected. There's an application, Brother Desmond, at the OUR for the last $50 million in the emergency fund. So the figure is no longer 200 million. Overnight, it's $150 million, making it that much easier. So I had a discussion with the OUR this morning. The documentation is in front of them, and based on all that has happened, I don't see how an approval will not be given for the disbursement of that $50 million. So that's great news. I'll answer 2 other issues that were raised. Member Paulwell mentioned about legislation being in place where people can't share electricity in disasters. I've asked my legal team, who have given me a preliminary, that only obtains if you are charging for it. So if you have a brother or a sister or a cousin or a next door neighbor who has light because they have a generator, and they are prepared to give you an extension cord and light up your house, please go ahead. And I encourage all who can do so to do so, as long as it is at no charge. And I don't think that there's any Jamaican that would charge in times like this, whether catastrophe or no catastrophe. And last but not least, I saw an interesting post this morning to say that what the Jamaican government has done in relation to the loan to JPS is common global practice. To name a few countries that have done it: Japan, Turkey, Pakistan, US, Grenada, Austria granted public assistance loans to utility companies for disaster recovery. I'm not aligned with any political party. I just share objectivity. Sigh, this bias. So again, we have not reinvented the wheel. We have done what a responsible government ought to do. I will be getting, as soon as the Ministry of Finance has finalized the loan documents, they will be made public. And as soon as that is done, which I expect to be done in a matter of days, including this weekend, so that JPS can move to have those 300 linesmen here by the 2nd week of December. Meaning not the linesmen, but the linesmen, the barge with all the equipment, everything, and work 18 hours a day to get as many places in the affected areas up for Christmas. Those would be the main townships, etc., that are possible. We will get from them a complete schedule of what they will do from the time those 300 linesmen arrive here, plus the 470. going right through, and everybody will get an update knowing which communities, which parishes will receive restoration when, similar to what we did at the end of Beryl. I close by saying that it is a priority. There's nothing bigger and more important in a restoration from a hurricane than electricity. You could build all the schools, you could spend billions of dollars. If you don't have stable electricity across your country, your productivity goes down, everything goes down, and you do not recover in the timeline that we need to recover. So again, I want to assure the Jamaican people that what we have done is the best that we could do in the circumstances that we are, and we will be monitoring with expertise assistance the numbers that have been given us in terms of the restoration and the restoration schedule. It's not money that we are giving out without the requisite transparency and accountability from the persons to who are receiving that money. I will keep you updated, and I just urge you, listen to informed information, listen to the government, listen to me, listen to my colleague ministers, and remember that at all times there are persons that do not have the best interests of the country and the people of Jamaica at heart. I leave you to be the judge. God bless Jamaica.
Thank you, Minister Vaz. And this is also a post-cabinet press briefing, and I should note that the JPS matter has come to every single cabinet meeting that we've had. And some weeks we've had 2 or 3 cabinet meetings, and it is something that we have deliberated about for endless hours. And the solution that we have now is one that the cabinet feels